right to the topic. What is Jujutsu Kaisen, or Jujutsu Kaisen, or Jujutsu Kaisen Sosen? So, for people who don't know, before you submit your final version of the chapter to Shonen Jump, what you usually would do is you would make a mock-up version, like what is approximately going to happen in the first chapter, what kind of characters are going to appear, etc, etc. Now, Gigakutami naturally had made the first one-shot Jujutsu Kaisen 0, now called, at the time it was just called Metropolitan School of Jujutsu Sorcery or something like that, with Yuta as the main character. It was 4 chapters, but when it was picked up for Shonen Jump, Gege made a different one. A one-shot called Jujutsu Sosen, which introduced us to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, and then it was edited by the editors, and now we got Jujutsu Kaisen. But looking at Jujutsu Sosen is pretty interesting. Last month, I think we got access to Jujutsu Kaisen through the exhibition, and now we can read a few of the pages. I assume some of the pages are missing because there are weird gaps in the story, but I think it's still an understandable experience, and it's interesting to look at the concepts which got revisited or abandoned. The chapter itself starts with Yaga and Gojo in his old design discussing sickness called a malediction, that has been spreading specifically through young folk, making them have something similar to an illness, and then they either get possessed by a creature, or an evil spirit, or a curse, and then they get a power, like a sorcery. And Gojo remarks how this might be the worst one in human history, saying that there might have been multiple of these. Then we cut to Yuji Itadori, who is betting on turtle races and losing, with what seems to be a similar situation to what happened to him in the first chapter, where one of his teachers bets with him. In the first chapter, it was a very fit man betting that he will join the basketball team or whatever the fuck. This time around, it's an old man betting that Yuji is not going to be able to bet on the turtles again. Unfortunately, the translations are pretty wonky. I'm trying to understand what's going on, because sometimes I have to look at the text but not at the image, so I have to tie them up together. What happens next is we're introduced to Megumi, who is offered a scholarship, but he's turning it down. Also, his name is Vanibuchi Megumi, not Fushiguro Megumi. And he's a potential middle school graduate, and he's planning not to graduate. Again, everything is very confusing because I assumed this was translated by fans. It is translated by fans. I found it on Myth's Twitter page, which is a famous leaker in the community. And yeah, he gets immediately a call from Tsumiki, which is interesting because Tsumiki seems to be not in a coma yet, at least. And she calls him and asks, "Are you okay right now?" It's usually always okay for a middle schooler. Smile, how dependable. As always, pretty close to what we get in the manga. Again, and then we get another scene which is pretty close. Honestly, I'm not sure we should discuss this scene because it's one-to-one to what happens in the manga. Well, with a few panels cut. The only difference is that Yuji's grandpa looks so different. He looks like a typical monk, I guess. I don't know why I want to say he's a monk, but he is kinda. The difference is being that we see Megumi standing behind Yuji, scratching his head as he calls the nurse that his grandfather is dead. Now, I think this is where we're missing a page, because Megumi mentions to Tsumiki that he's Yuji's friend, that he just met him. But the page of them meeting is missing. Tsumiki herself seems to be suffering from an illness, making Megumi worried that she's using fire around the house. She's not really... I think she has something of a tumor, or they assume it's a tumor. In actuality, she's a participant in the Coin Games. Then we meet a young girl who seems to be inducted in the Coin Games. She's talking to someone over the phone, which I'm trying to understand. She's saying, "Hello, Papa, I practiced a lot today. I got with one strike. I will go to the hospital now. Don't worry, it's not because I'm feeling bad. It's a bit of a plan. Wait for me, for Papa's sake. I'll become #1 in the Coin Games." Again, it seems like Coin Games are even, kind of even hypnotizing everyone into joining, which is interesting. Then we see Gojo and Ijiji, what seems to be Ijiji's first design, realize that they're potentially players in the hospitals. Since it starts with a sickness, there might be a lot of people who are suffering right now, and they're going to become players in the hospitals. This is where Yuji meets Megumi, a weird line about Yuji thinking this is his girlfriend, but no, Tsumiki is his sister, and Tsumiki is feeling bad. This is where we are explained to what's happening with Tsumiki, with her having a forehead tattoo just like in the manga, and that she has like problems with the eyes and something like that. Now, this is where the translator decided to explain what the malediction is. 3 lines are a bit of a pun that don't work in English. I had to rework it. What I'm translating is malediction. Kebio, which literally is mysterious illness. However, the Japanese word phaged illness is, I can't read this, which I also read as kebio. It's a pun while Megumi is saying kebio to refer to the mysterious illness. Yuji thinks he's saying kebio as a foreign illness. And Megumi explains that K in the mysterious illness, kebio is the kanji for... kebio is the kanji, I can read this kaiki, which means bizarre, strange, weird, mysterious. Basically, but then Megumi seems to fall down and get a weird tattoo. And then translator describes this creature as Sukuna, which possesses Megumi. Seems like through the Koen games, Sukuna is getting assigned to Megumi, which is a concept we see later on. And speaking of Koen games, actually, it's interesting how Kigi was planning to start with the Koen games, not end with them. Which is interesting with him revisiting the concept. I think start with Koen games is actually a really interesting idea, introducing a shit ton of characters from the get-go. Now, as you may have noticed, Yuji don't have shit. Yuji can't do shit right now, which is also interesting. Megumi seems to be in the in-chain type of situation where Sukuna is saying that all you need to use my power is to just say, invoke. Now, this is a pretty harsh cut, which I'm assuming there was a curse attack on them, and that's why they're fighting. And Sukuna is saying, just invoke my power and you'll be good. Evoke, Gary writes Orose. Now the kanji means descend, fall, notably used when angels fall down, turning back on God, suitable for falling into evil. Now there's the concept called Kami Oroshi, where you invoke a Kami, spirit summoning into yourself. Your silent shaman medium stuff, basically. As we can see, I think they were getting attacked by this girl and the fight got cut, and Megumi transforms into Sukuna and kills her. This is what I assume is happening. That we get Sukuna laughing scene similar to what happened in the anime, with the Yuji concerned and Sukuna about to attack. But then Gojo shows up again, the same as the manga original. He beats the shit out of Sukuna, and I would like to say, I kind of fuck with the Sukuna design. With him having horns and shit, it's really cool. And I like how deranged Sukuna looks in the sketches. Usually Gege likes to make sketches a lot more deranged and then clean them up a bit, but I like it. Also, I think... Let's go just snap Sukuna's neck here. He transforms Megumi back to... Megumi. And Yuji is there too, for some reason. And Gojo basically explains the concept of curses to them. Then we are briefly shown Higuruma, which is interesting because I thought Higuruma was planned as a replacement for Nanami. But no, Higuruma, Kashimo, and Nanami himself. As you remember, I think I mentioned this a few times before on my channel, Nanami was originally planned to be a villain, not a good guy. Now we hear chimes, which no one can explain what's happening, and Megumi's hand going bing bong bang. Weird, but okay. The malediction patients have reached the quota. Now, this not Kogane, which I don't think they're shown on screen. It's just as them saying. Now we will begin the Koen games. Gojo's thoughts. Koen games. Hey, can you help me move this? Quiet, Gojo. It's okay. He won't die so easily from malediction. What seems to have happened is that Tsumiki can't handle her malediction or Koen games, and Megumi is now Sukuna. We are then moved to a pretty similar scene. But first all, we're introduced to the third year, so nothing new. Where we have Megumi thinking about Tsumiki, and then we're moved to a pretty similar scene with Yuji and Megumi being outside, and Gojo and Yuji being outside and Gojo introducing the Metropolitan School to him. We also see Tsumiki briefly, which is interesting because her design is different. She has a third eye, so I wonder if she was like something similar to Tian Shinhan from like the mythologies. Maybe she had a similar power or something like that. She's also being held in Jujutsu Tech. It wasn't as obvious that she was in Jujutsu Tech in the original manga, but this here is pretty obvious. Then we are introduced to the third years again, who are pinning down Sukuna, which is interesting. They are able to pin down... no, this is Megumi. This is Yuji. This is Yuji. Wait, yeah, due to the sketchiness, I couldn't tell. Basically, they're interrogating, quote-unquote, Megumi, when Yuji comes in and demands they let him go. But they beat the shit out of Yuji, naturally, why not? Then Gojo explains that while he's tied up, Sukuna can't switch with Megumi. Again, I really like the art on Sukuna here. Eventually, Megumi's let go, and we're explained what the coin games are. Basically, it's the same, be forcing players to kill each other, or they're killed by the coin games themselves. And Megumi is explained that if he uses Sukuna's power 2 or 3 more times, he's basically going to become Sukuna's vessel permanently, which is very different to what happened to Yuji. I think if Yuji used his powers more than a few times, it would be the same. There is no concept as Sukuna's fingers in this version, which is interesting. Also, Yuji decides to participate in the coin games too, despite literally having no abilities of his own, which I think is a pretty interesting concept. Honestly, if someone that did not read Jujutsu Kaisen probably may speed read through, you told them, yeah, Yuji has no powers, they would believe you. Which is interesting. I think Yuji might have had something like a heavy restriction in this version, because this version is still trying to tie up with Jujutsu Kaisen 0, despite Yuta not being here. Now we are introduced to Yaga, which seems to have a different gimmick of working out in this version. And then Yuji pleads with people to again let him join the coin games. And eventually I think they make sure he does. Kogane seems to be in this version just a hand, like a mouth on a hand, instead of a straight up Kogane, which informs that the coin games have started. There are 133 people, and they keep killing each other. Again, there is like a list of people, which, again, this is so similar to the original arc, which, like, Geki had this idea from the get-go. Yuji and Megumi decide to save Tsumiki, and then we are shown Nanami. Nanami being basically forced to work this terrible job, being made fun of, and eventually getting tattoos, which I think everyone gets a tattoo who joins the coin games. And eventually Nanami decided to kill and slaughter everyone. This being our last panel, page, whatever, of the chapter. Now, what do I think of this? I think, first of all, big credits to Yatsukiyu on Twitter and Imigur translations by F9X00 on Twitter. Now, what do I think of this chapter? I think this is a pretty interesting way to look at what Gege was planning this entire time and what was cut or what was left out. To be honest, I think Gege got to use most of the stuff that he wanted. The stuff just got reworked, that's all it is. Mostly the ideas still happened, just not in the order, just not in the way we expected them. Now, what do I think... Now, do I think this version is better than what we got? I think, as I think about more and more, mangas that start out with a tournament arc are usually one of the better ones. Starting out with a tournament arc usually gives you a very easy way to understand the concepts in the manga, the power systems. You immediately get to meet a shit ton of characters in the most natural ways. Now, and especially with the coin games not being an organized thing and being basically forced onto the players, is also very interesting. We're getting to meet a lot of sorcerers that are, well, just incarnated. And the thing with the coin games in the manga is the concept of people being forced to be sorcerers was very interesting, but was never expanded on. which I think Gege at the start of his story would do an amazing job. He would expand on someone who doesn't want to have sorcery having sorcery now. A specific type of people having sorcery, specific jobs, etc., etc. And now, but I still think what we got is pretty good. I still think with the changes that were made to the story are pretty good. This clearly makes Megumi the main character, and I don't like Megumi in the main lead. I think he's too, well, not boring. I just don't like how gloomy he is for the story, which is already very gloomy. Yuji being as happy and go-lucky as he is makes him stand out compared to the other characters in the story. But yeah, these are my thoughts. The translations are in the links. If you find any more pages, because there are clearly missing pages in between, that's why I did not discuss it in detail, because I couldn't glue the story up in some moments, like towards the end. But let me know if you find them. Thank you for watching. I hope you join me again.